Hi, so I'm going to talk about social media and its impact on marketing. So, first of all, we know that 92% of companies claim that social media marketing is important to their businesses. So, we know that we can look out at marketing overall. We have large businesses, small businesses taking advantage of various social media platform, right? So, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, etc., companies are interested in using social media platforms, and social media platforms are also trying to adjust their strategies to make sure that they're appropriate for consumers and for brands. So if we look at the Cambridge Analytica debacle for Facebook, we know that Facebook um, has spent quite a bit of time apologizing, trying to make consumers more comfortable after it became well known that Facebook was sharing customer data with this third party organization, right? And so, again, companies and brands are trying to figure out how they can fit social media or weave social media into their marketing, overall marketing plans. And social media platforms are trying to figure out how can they make their platforms conducive environments in which businesses and consumers can engage, right? So it's kind of going both ways, right? So if we want to think about brands and how brands are using social media, whether it's Coca-Cola, Nike, the Bulls, Chicago Bulls, or Chicago Bears, we know that many of these organizations, brands, have a presence on YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. Right? So through these brands, through these sites, the most important thing to keep in mind is that these brands are creating consumer brand communities, right? So when we talk about a consumer brand community or virtual community, basically what want to keep in mind is that we're bringing together like-minded individuals who are going to share their enthusiasm for the brand. We're going to share information about the brand and their usage of the brand, etc. But it gives the brand and the company a way to engage with consumers like never before. So again, we kind of talked about this previously, that this could be a two-edged sword for companies and brands. So on one hand, the brand has the opportunity to engage the consumer, but on the other hand, the consumer has the opportunity to provide negative feedback to the brand, and maybe in some instances make disparaging comments about the brand, right? So we know that particularly with millennials, we know that millennials are using social media platforms to express or to vocalize negative sentiment if they've had a negative opinion or negative experience with the product. And in some instances, companies or brands, in many instances, companies or brands will provide free product in order to appease the consumer as a form of apology for a negative brand experience. So, have any of you guys ever had an experience in which you've expressed negative sentiment about a brand? And have you received, I don't know, free product as a result? I think it's an interesting phenomenon in that brands have to figure out how to manage that in order to be effective in the long run, right? How do you manage negative sentiment? We know that many brands actually engage in online conversations with consumers, which I think in some instances can be helpful to let consumers know that brands are aware of the kinds of conversations that are taking place online and that they're willing to engage in those conversations even when there's negative sentiment involved, right? So again, social media is interactive. Consumers can participate in these conversations about the brands. The author mentions an example with Tom's Shoes and how Tom's ran a campaign, hashtag without shoes, and they were committed to donating a pair of shoes for every consumer that tweeted a picture of themselves in bare feet. Okay, and they ended up donating 296,000 or 300,000 pairs of shoes, right? So social media can be immediate in terms of benefits. It's immediate, can have an immediate impact, and it can be very timely. And most importantly, social media can be very cost effective, right? So if we look at what companies are doing today, particularly with integrated marketing communications, we know that companies are moving away from investments in expensive traditional forms of advertising such as print and commercials, and they're moving more towards digital or online vehicles, which are overall more cost effective, right? So the low cost of social media makes these platforms even accessible to small businesses. So wondering how many of you guys work for small businesses or small organizations that have capitalized or have incorporated social media into their marketing strategy. highly likely that if you work for a small business, or small mom and pop, that they too are capitalizing on the benefits of social media. Last thing that I want to talk about would be the idea of mobile marketing. And so I recently did some research with Professor Chen on the effectiveness of branded mobile apps, and we plan to have that paper published within the next year or so. But when we talk about branded mobile apps, what we want to keep in mind is that, first of all, companies are capitalizing on the effectiveness of mobile devices. We know that if we look at the US saturation, we know that mobile devices, there's a 100% saturation rate, and that's because many consumers have more than one mobile device. So companies are realizing that there's significant opportunity that exists with respect to mobile marketing, right? So a couple of things that we want to keep in mind. First of all, many companies are setting up a presence again via various social media platforms. But we also know that many companies are also creating their own mobile branded apps in which they can engage with consumers, they can disseminate product information. Some companies have created games and such that consumers can take advantage of, right? So the whole idea of branded mobile apps can be pretty impactful from the consumer's perspective. So again, we know we have the widespread adoption of mobile devices. Again, 100% penetration rate, the U.S. And we know if we take a look at some of the specific statistics, mobile advertising spending grew dramatically, grew 66% in the U.S. and is expected to double over the next 4 years. So mobile ad spending is expected to overtake spending on traditional TV ads over the next 4 years as well. And again, when we talk about the ways that companies are using mobile messaging or using mobile advertising, they're using it in a way to facilitate or stimulate immediate buying behavior, making or shaping it easier for the consumer to connect with the brand or to enrich the overall brand experience. So one interesting example, the author talks about Taco Bell and how Taco Bell has a new campaign, making moments that matter. And what they're trying to do is to weave Taco Bell brand into consumers' daily experiences, particularly their daily experiences revolving breakfast. So Taco Bell has even partnered with Google Waze, and they're trying to give consumers directions to get to the nearest Taco Bell. Thinking about, taking a look at analyzing consumers' data to figure out when are they accessing breakfast recipes, trying to figure out what behaviors take place as a part of a consumer's morning routine, and then trying to figure out strategies to weave the Taco Bell brand into the consumer's behavior as a part of their morning routine. So very effective, very cutting edge use of technology in mobile branding. So again, organizations, brands are trying to figure out ways, not only for them to use mobile branding, but how they can use social media and digital platforms overall to increase the effectiveness of their brands, right? Now, what we want to keep in mind is it's not only important that you integrate your social media strategies, your branded or mobile marketing efforts. You want to make sure that those are integrated together, but you also want to make sure that you integrate social media, mobile marketing into the other elements of your advertising campaign. So whether that's direct mail, whether that's traditional television advertising, all of these different tools should be integrated in a seamless manner in order to make sure that the company or brand is communicating to the consumer with one voice, in a consistent voice, consistent tone, and one message across all of these various tools.